Hi there. In today's video, I would like to discuss about the learning recap that will help you to guide you in your preparations for the so-called midterm assessments. Now, this learning recap are the things that you should have known if you are diligent in your studies up until this time. Now, first and foremost, as I've been telling you during the first day of class and also in the previous video, you can find the video. It is located in our eLeap. Now you need to know that the most fundamental, or if I were to put it in such a way, the foundations of the fundamental of business management is that you need to fulfill that two most important imperatives. So the most important imperative you should know is that business organizations must attain, sustain, and if they are lucky to fulfill the previous two conditions, they have to enhance competitive advantage. The reason is extremely simple because this imperative represents the survival imperative of business organizations, without which the business organization cannot survive in the marketplace. Okay, therefore, in the context of the four functions of management, this sustained competitive advantage must be achieved. And the key to this is, of course, leadership, because it is through leadership that all the other functions are being undertaken. Without leadership, there can be no planning, no organization, no structure, no control, no nothing. So leadership is key. Leadership is the prime mover of the rest of the functions of management to achieve this so-called the most important imperative of management. Of course, to achieve or in achieving this competitive advantage, business organizations must not forget the second imperative. But the second imperative will be discussed more towards the end of the semester. Okay, so, and of course, this is very, very important. Another thing is that the environment is very, very important. You people, you students should understand the dynamic and external environment. These are volatile. The components of the environments are always volatile. You cannot think that tomorrow will be like today, or even today is the same like yesterday. Put in your minds that the environment is dynamic, and the leadership, the CEO or what have you, he or she must handle the environment with great care, but also with a degree of calculated risk taking, or a degree of calculated boldness, not to be reckless, not to be what do you call it, dangerously, without consideration, but with careful consideration. As I've been telling you, you need to systematically try to predict the future. If you don't understand what I'm talking, then you are not learning, because you are planning You are planning for the future. That planning function of management is not for today. It's not for tomorrow, or it's not even for 1 week from now. It's for the future. Several examples have been given, okay? From the smallest street or food street vendor that have to think what will happen tomorrow, and the predictions of what will happen tomorrow might not come to the expectation that has driven the production process. If that happens, the street vendor lost a lot, will lose a lot. This and the same thing even with the biggest aircraft manufacturer. Okay, investments to come up with a new model of aircraft takes years, from the drawing board to the actual production. So you got to plan for the future, okay? You need to think for the future, systematically analyze, build up scenarios for the future, and then be able be able to prepare yourself or have some allowances if the future does not happen to what you expect. Think about it. Therefore, you got to deal with this uncertain environment. How you deal with it, that rests with the leadership. Leadership has to deal with the uncertain environment, definitely. But then how do you deal with the uncertain environment? Certainly not by mechanical thinking, certainly not by naive thinking like many of you are exhibiting, but with calculated risks. Okay, so that's the first part of the learning recap. Of course, the second part of the learning recap focuses on the structure kind of parts of the management function, okay, or the organizing parts of function. You need to understand the principles of organization. Do you know what are the principles of organization? The text is there, or should be there in front of you, or you should be reading those chapters that focuses on organization. The thing here is that organizing organizing the key to organizing should facilitate the planning process, and of course the planning process must satisfy the first two imperatives of business management. Think about it, okay? And then of course, current trends of management, we talked about it in class with regards to the current trends of management that prefers the destructuring or the flattening of organizations. And the question is that, is this trend uh, still continuing? Okay, is this trend is suitable? More so because the textbooks that you are reading, even the Malaysian textbooks which I uh, introduced to you, the two textbooks, the contents of those textbooks are mainly from the America, okay, North America and Western Europe kind of business environments are the so-called flat structures or flat hierarchies suitable in the context of Malaysian society. So you need to be able to think about it, okay? Because management and society cannot be seen as two separate things, okay? And that is why we have the second imperative. But you yourself have to be able to discuss the suitability of such flat hierarchies in the context of Malaysian society. Okay, right. So here is another item which it's a bit complicated for you to understand, but nevertheless it is important. One of the importance item which needs to be emphasized, because we talked about the two imperatives of business management. But of course, in the first half of this semester, we focus on the first imperative, that is the need to attain, sustain, and enhance competitive advantage. How? Okay, or how would the organization principle, okay, or the general principle of organizing should be consistent, or how can you make it to be consistent with that most important imperative of management? So those are the things which you may want to emphasize. I understand that many of you might not be able to keep up with the readings. My suggestion would be, if you are short of time, if you are like halfway through, if you have like finished only like 3 or 4 chapters at this stage, please, okay, if I were you, okay, I will do this. So please just skim through the rest of the chapters and focus on this learning recap. But the most important thing in this learning recap is that you must not memorize all the things that I have said. The key thing is to understand, because in this learning recap, there are several important fundamental items that should guide you in your understanding of management, especially management for the business organization. So, in that regard, I would like to wish you all the best in your preparations for the so called midterm assessment that is coming up in a short time. So, all the best. So, if you have any questions, please drop the questions in this video, or please ask the questions in class. So, goodbye.